on the phone. It is always a pleasure to welcome back to this program, ladies and gentlemen, the Washington bureau chief. Do I have that right? Of the Huffington Post.
You got it.
Ryan Grimm. Hello, Ryan.
Nailed it.
I nailed it.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing? Happy 2015.
Good. And a happy one to you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Now, 2015, of course, ushers in the 114th Congress. I assume you're aware of that.
They're coming.
Being the Washington
the
bureau chief of Huffington Post. Now, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. I guess we should start with Speaker John Boehner. He is supposedly getting a challenge from Louis Gohmert and also from Ted Yoho of Florida. Now, we all know Louis Gohmert. He is the congressman from Texas, who some of us here think may be a deep cover agent for the Soviet Union. I'm not sure if you're aware that he studied over there in college. But be that as it may, Ted Yoho of Florida is also challenging. You've just got a piece coming out that just came out 30 minutes ago. We're pointing out why this is a little bit of a theater by Ted Yoho.
Yes. So on October 20th, which is not that long ago, down in Florida, Ted Yoho was a co-host of a fundraiser for the Boehner for Speaker Committee, which was raising $10,000. For $10,000 a pop, you could swing a club in the vicinity of John Boehner. For smaller amounts of money, you could go to a party and get your picture taken with him, which no doubt Yoho did. In other words, he fundraised against himself just about a month or two ago.
All right. So knowing that he literally fundraised for Boehner to be Speaker.
And what I love is it's not just that he fundraised for Boehner. It's the actual Boehner for Speaker Committee.
Exactly. And so here's now maybe Ted loves to play golf or whatnot, but I mean, what's going on here? I mean, it does not seem there's two dynamics that seem to be in play. One is that statistically speaking, you would have to have people who voted for Boehner in 2012 to be majority leader, to be their majority leader, a year after he had done so poorly, actually, in terms of getting Republicans reelected. This time, now that they've taken over the House, they would have to vote against him based upon the numbers, even if all the new members who come in are Republican voted against him. And then, on the other hand, you have a full court press by the right-wing machine, cottage industries, talk radio, WorldNet Daily, whatever, Breitbart, to unseat him. So what's happening? Is Ted Yoho, is he just basically, is he just preening?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, he's one of the, he's one of the kind of insurgent Tea Party guys in public. When it comes to, like we were just talking about, when it comes to fundraising for Boehner and for the party, he's a team player. But yeah, this is an opportunity for him to capture, some of that energy that you're talking about. The Breitbart and the talk radio energy out there that pins all of the blame for everything that's gone wrong that isn't on Obama is on Boehner. So this is a way for him to take away some of the spotlight from Louis Gohmert, who seems to get too much of it as far as some of these folks are concerned.
Well, do you think do you think that Boehner says to Yoho, like, yeah, go ahead and run. That way Gohmert doesn't get too much behind him and it sort of diffuses the anger, et cetera, et cetera?
Not exactly. I think Boehner is at a place with cancer gone. There are no serious alternatives to him. There's nobody that has any base from the right that could challenge him. So Boehner's posture is more to ignore folks like Yoho and Gomer than to kind of sit down with them and talk about ways to satisfy Breitbart. Boehner does get a little bit of delight out of annoying some of the more obnoxious talk radio folks. So he in some senses doesn't actually want to tamp it down all the time.
Now, I don't want to embarrass you, but you got a little bit out hustled. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Breitbart has an exclusive with your buddy Sean Hannity, who apparently exclusively to Breitbart.com reiterated that he's not backing down and thinks Speaker Boehner should be fired.
I don't know how they got that. You can't win them. You can't win them all.
Yeah.
Well, the vote is happening any minute now. But Sean's taking a courageous stand, I guess.
Yes. Well, I mean, you should get on that. Maybe you can get the exclusive when Sean Hannity is pissed that the vote didn't go his way.
I do like how Breitbart puts an all caps exclusive in front of every single story that they run.
Well, he did apparently email Breitbart. I don't know if he just emailed. I don't know if it was like a newsletter or if he just emailed them specifically. But
like pitches at Breitbart.com or whatever.
Exactly. Tips at Breitbart.com.
Tips, yeah.
So Sean and these guys, of course, this gives them some room. I mean, they're immediately have to be on the Republican control of the House and the Senate is not Republican enough. But give us a sense of like what's happening with Scalise. In a different day, Steve Scalise would probably be shamed out of his post. But it doesn't sound like he's going anywhere. I mean, this is a guy who once said that he's like David Duke without the baggage. I don't know if virulent racism you would refer to as baggage. I think it's just more like he's known as a virulent racist.
Right. That's not the baggage. That's the traveler.
Right. Exactly. I mean, so what's going on with that? I mean, no, the Republicans don't feel like this is a liability for them at all?
You know, I like to think that I'm pretty good at predicting how things are going to play out in Congress. And when this was unfolding, I was pretty sure that Scalise would have to step down over this, and it looks like I miscalculated that calling yourself David Duke without the baggage, going to some white supremacist conference, and then 2 years later being one of the only people in the Louisiana House to vote against Martin Luther King Day. All of those things coming out together is not enough to knock him out of leadership. This is a post-autopsy world. Remember they did there after 2012 when they got annihilated by the multicultural coalition that put Obama in. They did this autopsy and said, well, we need to be more sensitive to the concerns of the African American community, which you might think would include having somebody like Scalise step down after something like this happens. But
you may be assuming that all African Americans have a problem with white supremacist groups, and that may not be fair.
Well, Mia Love is standing by him.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, I wonder if this isn't, I mean, because I have a theory about, and I want to talk about Antonio Weiss, which is sort of a different, but it's, and you may be just tied up in your liberal racism and your liberal intolerance to not be able to embrace someone who's a white supremacist. But I wonder if this isn't indicative of our finally sort of crossing some threshold where this battle, where that would actually I guess, generate that autopsy that we saw in 2012 is over. In other words, the first thing that the House and the Senate is going to pass, and I do think they're going to pass this, is Keystone XL. I don't even think TransCanada wants to do Keystone XL anymore, based upon what's going on. I'm serious about the oil prices.
No, you might be right.
And I think President Obama is going to veto this, and that's not something I would have said 6 to 8 months ago. I think he's just going to do it immediately. And then where do the Republicans go? Like, they have, I can't, it seems to me that literally the only thing that they have left is just basically passing stuff for their base, which they, on one hand, are afraid of doing because they don't want to be seen as being obstructionist, but it seems like it's the only thing they can do.
Well, also going from opposition to governing is proving to be difficult for them. Just look at this proposal around the 40-hour work week. I don't know how closely you followed this, but in Obamacare defines a full-time worker as 30 hours. And so anybody that works 30 or more ought to have health insurance provided by the employer. Now, the Republicans have hated this provision and have accused it of pushing people's hours underneath 30. And so anybody who doesn't work enough, they'll say, well, that's because of Obamacare. That's what's doing that to you. And the policy's not great. It should probably be phased in. So that if you work 20 hours, they pay 2/3 of it or whatever. But that's neither here nor there. Their proposal is to bump it up to 40 hours. But now all of a sudden, there are conservative intellectuals telling them, hey, actually, guys, if you do this, there are millions of people that currently work 40 hours a week, and their boss could very easily bump them down to 39, where it's not easy for the boss to bump them from 40 down to 29.
Right.
So the problem that you're trying to solve, you're actually going to make worse. And so you have people like Yuval Levine and Bill Kristol urging Republicans not to do this top priority thing that they've been saying they're going to do the whole time, because in opposition it sounds great to stand up for the 40-hour work week, but when you look like, oh well, what will be the consequences of us doing this? Now, on the other hand, it appears as though even after it's been pointed out to them that it will backfire, they may still go forward. And why would that be? Because they actually are not concerned about the hours that a worker gets. They just don't want the employer to have to pay for the health insurance.
Right.
They're very strongly opposed to the employer mandate. That's no secret, and that's the real motivation. But the employer mandate is actually an extremely popular provision of Obamacare. Everybody thinks that bosses should cover health insurance.
Well, that's my point to a certain extent, is that the only things that they have to pass, and I think many of them will be vetoed. It doesn't, even like this time last year or midsummer, like the idea was they're going to make Obama veto some very popular bills that they want, but they don't seem to even have any. They've run out of them, right? I mean, like literally, I think all that's left for them is to make a statutory sort of like permanent committee on Benghazi, like at this point. That they don't have anything that they can push, and by the time they get into the fall, it's over for them, because Ted Cruz is always going to be saying no to whatever it is the Republicans are going to do, or he's going to be saying that's not enough, and I'm going to vote against it on principle.
Yeah, and between now and then, probably their best friend will be Obama's veto pen, because that kind of gets them off the hook for the consequences of ill thought out legislation that they might pass, like the 40-hour work week thing. So let's say they actually do go ahead. I think a lot of the leadership would actually be secretly hoping that Obama vetoes it. And then they can continue to kind of operate in the opposition posture, which has never hurt them. They didn't do any governing in 2009 or 2010, and they were rewarded with a wave, and they took control of the House, and they didn't do any governing over the last 4 years, and now they control Congress. So there's no real incentive for them to
I
set
agree.
up some type of governing infrastructure.
I mean, I think the problem is that there's a massive drag on them that even if they all gathered in a room and said, this is what we want to do, they couldn't possibly do it. There's nothing they could implement at this point that wouldn't piss off their base. I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that on some level, like I have a sense that the critical mass has been reached. And, just like, in 2012, where the so-called establishment candidate, even though he pulled himself way to the right during the primaries, I mean, it may be fatally so, I think, to a certain extent. I don't even think that guy wins this time around. I mean, I think like they have basically given up on those aspirations on some level, and now just need to hold on to their jobs by, the cut. There is not a sense I get in the country that people are screaming for that reform on the 30-hour mandate. You know what I mean? That just doesn't have the sexiness. The one thing that I want to do, I do want to talk about that I do think that is possible, and I want to get your sense as to how much this is heating up, is FastTrack. Because 2 days ago, Phyllis Schlafly, to the extent that she's still actually writing her own stuff, wrote in WorldNet Daily that, was quoting Elizabeth Warren about giving, and this is the one thing that I think the president and John Boehner want to get done, which is fast-track authority. And it's going to be interesting to see if that can happen, because certainly by the fall, Ted Cruz blows it up. In the spring, I don't think he's there yet.
Right. Zach, our guy Zach Carter actually interviewed Schlafly for a piece he did on trade. She's still kicking, and she's fighting hard, and the Tea Party is very engaged on this, and the liberal Democrats in the Senate and in the House are organized. The liberal grassroots groups don't have a whole lot to fight over, so they'll be energized. So there will be some energy around opposition to it. Lindsey Graham, has been very skeptical of it, and he's a key player on this issue. So, Boehner and Obama clearly want it badly, but it's going to be a real fight for them. And you're right, the clock is ticking on them.